All right, guys, we are back. Going to start with the crypto contagion, the Three Arrows Capital meltdown. The story continues into this week. Here is a story from the Wall Street Journal. Crypto hedge fund Three Arrows Capital ordered by court to liquidate. David's going to go through all of the details, but just a little bit of background on this. Three Arrows Capital was absolutely massive during the bull run. 10 to 18 billion maybe assets under management. It's still kind of unclear, but a whole lot of money and a whole lot of prestige through this group. And now there's a complete meltdown. David, what's the story here? Take us through the timeline of what happened.
Now that we have seen the fallout from some of this, we get to start to peer inside the black box that is Three Arrows Capital. All of this really started, and this behavior started at the very beginning of the bull market. For those that were here around the beginning of the bull market, the Grayscale GBTC trust, it's GBTC is one-to-one towards Bitcoin, but there's no redemption window. And this is because we cannot have a Bitcoin ETF because of the SEC. They had to make a trust out of things. And so you could come to the Grayscale GBTC trust, you could deposit 1 Bitcoin, you would be issued 1 GBTC share, and then 6 to 12 months later, you were allowed to liquidate that share on the open market. And this is for accredited investors only. As the bull market got underway, and institutions did not have Coinbase accounts or FTX accounts, they used the Grayscale Trust to gain access to Bitcoin. And since they're not one-to-one redeemable, since there's not a credit window, the Grayscale GBT trust could have a premium. I think the premium got as large as 148%, as in 1 Bitcoin was, 1 GBTC share was worth 1.48 times a Bitcoin, when it should trade at par, but it doesn't because it's not an ETF.
So it's a nice arbitrage, right? It's a 48% arbitrage right there.
If you can take the 6 months illiquidity window.
Right.
So here's what Three Arrows Capital would do. They went out and borrowed as much Bitcoin as possible from the market to turn it into GBTC shares to milk this premium. They would borrow Bitcoin from some source and they would put it into Grayscale. 6 months later, they would have this 48% arbitrage, and that number would fluctuate.
Because this premium would never go away, right?
It was so persistent for so long that's what people thought. But then even the most average person will if there's a premium, people are going to milk it. And Three Arrows Capital were the people milking it. The thing is, Ryan, they weren't selling their GBTC to capture it on premium. They were using it as other collateral. So this starts off by Three Arrows Capital borrowing as much Bitcoin as possible, as much Bitcoin as the market would lend to them from any lender facility possible, which is where this contagion starts. And so they put all their BTC that they are borrowing into the Grayscale GBTC trust to get GBTC back. And then they start using that GBTC as collateral to borrow stable coins. So they're now borrowing stable coins based on their GBTC, and they started to invest in order to try and get the alpha, try and get the premium to start to pay some of their loans back for borrowing Bitcoin in the first place. They invest bigly into Terra. We all know what happens there. They bought a bunch of vested AVAX tokens. AVAX is down bad, and they're probably still vesting anyways. And they started to take more and more capital from wherever they could get it, because they also have loan and interest payments to get back. Right? They get a $660 million unsecured loan from Voyager, which is a crypto exchange, not a lending facility, but somehow they convinced Voyager to give them a $660 million loan, unsecured loan. They get a $1 billion loan from BlockFi, over collateralized. I believe the numbers were some combination of Bitcoin and also GBTC shares. We'll talk about that later on. So they get a $1 billion loan from BlockFi with a 30% over collateralization. So a $1.3 billion inside of BlockFi, they get a $1 billion loan, and they go and speculate on the market with that. They get caught up in the staked ETH trade, trading the merge, thinking that the merge is going to happen, everyone's going to buy into staked ETH, but then instead of the merge happening, markets go down bad because of Fed risks, and their staked ETH, instead of being worth 1 ETH, turns into being worth 0.96 ETH, and they can't redeem that because that's how staked ETH works in the first place. And so also, like, there's illegal stuff happening too. And so the Singapore Central Bank just gave Three Arrows censures, I don't know what that means actually, Three Arrows Capital for alleged misleading and false disclosures. And there's evidence for this that's going around on crypto Twitter and throughout the markets. There's evidence that they falsified records to lenders in order to access more capital. So fraud, basically. They committed fraud so that their balance sheet could look healthier so they could get more and more loans out from other people. There's also public reports that Three Arrows Capital allowed other trading firms to use their account on crypto exchanges to trade through their account, right? Three Arrows Capital, they had billions of dollars. They could negotiate with crypto exchanges to like, hey, charge us less fees on your exchange because we're going to put a bunch of volume there and we don't want to pay those fees. And the crypto exchanges are like, yes, totally. You guys put all this volume through our exchange. We'll totally charge you less fees. And then Three Arrows Capital let other people put money into their account to trade on their account on crypto exchanges so that these third parties could access less fees as well. You know what that is, Ryan? That is an unlicensed prime brokerage with Bank Secrecy Act and wire fraud. These are criminal cases. And then there's also representation that there's also evidence that they represented to OTC desks. They had relationships with other entities and other OTC desks that they didn't in order to like presume some legitimacy to other OTC desks. So they start off with this like very normal, like, I'll just borrow Bitcoin to get this GBTC trade premium. They never sell. They never manage their risks. They instead of closing their risks, they just open up more loans on those risks. Then they somehow like give this crypto Twitter like a brand about themselves that they're huge chads who make a ton of money. And so people loan them even more money. They took money in from DeFi treasuries, they raise $50 million. They're sitting on it. They don't need to go get yield during the bear market. So somehow Three Arrows Capital convinced them, just give us your treasury and we will give you like this percentage. Meanwhile, they probably like stick it into something like Terra and get 20%, and then that thing goes to zero. So like a bunch of DeFi treasuries are down to zero because they trusted Three Arrows Capital to give them the yield. And so like, not only did they are one of the sources of contagion because they borrowed from Voyager, they borrowed from BlockFi. If they didn't borrow from Celsius, they are 1 degree away from borrowing from Celsius.
Well, what's crazy about this is like, this is the point retail starts lending to Three Arrows Capital without knowing it. So if you're putting funds into BlockFi, right, and you're generating some sort of yield, you were effectively lending to Three Arrows Capital. Now, this is an over-collateralized loan, right? Of course, so people think that's super safe. But we'll talk about why that wasn't so safe with GDBC a little bit later. But I think the important point here is it wasn't just institution to institution. This became a retail phenomenon when you're depositing funds into these crypto banks like a BlockFi or Celsius. You are actually giving some funds to Su Zhu and the Three Arrows Capital team.
And that truth is rampant throughout the industry, right? Like Voyager, a crypto exchange, not a lending desk. Customers would come and deposit their money into Voyager exchange to do normal exchange stuff, and Voyager lent that money out to Three Arrows Capital. So Three Arrows Capital is at the center of the contagion. They are the contagion, Ryan. They had their tentacles in every single entity that would ever lend them money, either over collateralized or under collateralized. And so like, it almost doesn't matter where retail entered the industry, money flowed into Three Arrows Capital because they took every single lending opportunity that they could and maxed that account out. That is crazy.
Does this blow you away?
Nuts.
Like, it feels like they just made all of the noob mistakes in like one market cycle. They just did them all. It's like, check the box. I'll think the GDPC trade goes on forever. I'll get into Terra and see if I'll do this ETH staking trade, expecting it some sort of timing on the other side of this. I'll do the alt layer 1 trade with Avalanche and all of these other things. Like, they're just checking the boxes of all of the mistakes a noob would make to lose their money during the bull market.
Right. And like they made such a staggering amount of money during the upside of the market. Part of that was on the backs of they borrowed it and then like, it works in bull markets. And then they lost it all in the bear market, right? And so like, I can't remember where I heard this quote from, but like the venture firms or like, hedge funds that do extremely well in one cycle aren't going to be around it for the second cycle. Because if they were levered up, if they were levered up on the way up, they're also levered on the way down and they don't make it the second time around. So like having too strong a performance on the upswing means you're getting liquidated on the downswing. And that's definitely what happened. happened. You want to see the cherry on top of this whole entire saga, Ryan?
Yeah, give me the dirty
Su
cherry.
Zhu has a $50 million mega yacht that is being seized, and I can't remember what the name of this yacht is, but it's some like internet meme. This is a triple-decker yacht that Su Zhu put a down payment on somewhere in, like, I think it's the British Virgin Islands or somewhere, who has also made a court order to liquidate Three Arrows Capital, because that's where Three Arrows Capital, I believe, is domiciled. Yeah, so like this is something that Su Zhu still has, is this like $50 million yacht that he has his down payment on, which is absolutely crazy.
Absolutely crazy, absolutely brutal. It sounds like the authorities are stepping in, nation states, British Virgin Islands are ordering the liquidation. So like the collectors are coming probably for that yacht as well. I would imagine all the assets are going to get liquidated. It's pretty
Ryan,
crazy.
This is not a matter of like Three Arrows Capital going under and like we're not seeing Three Arrows Capital again. Like this isn't happening yet. This is still in speculation phase, but this is a criminal enterprise. This is a criminal enterprise. Well, like, Kyle Davies and Su Zhu are, in my mind, I'm not a lawyer. I do not have insight to these things. Do not listen to me. They are criminals on the run. Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, head over to Bankless HQ right now to develop your crypto investing skills and learn how to free yourself from banks and gain your financial independence. We recommend joining our daily newsletter, podcast, and community as a Bankless Premium subscriber to get the most out of your Bankless experience. You'll get access to our market analysis, our alpha leaks, and exclusive content, and even the Bankless token for airdrops, raffles, and unlocks. If you're interested in crypto, the Bankless community is where you want to be. Click the link in the description to become a Bankless Premium subscriber today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for in-depth interviews with industry leaders, Ask Me Anythings, and weekly roll-ups where we summarize the week in crypto and other fantastic content. Thanks everyone for watching and being on the journey as we build out the Bankless Nation.